Hello and welcome to another episode of Acts of the Blood God, an independent RPG podcast. I'm your sitting in host, Eric Van Allen. Cat's out for smokes at SDCC.
They sell limited edition smokes.
Limited edition. Yeah. The Marvel
Exclusives.
Smoke-O-Matic universe. The dankest of Marvel packs. Cat's acquiring it. Oh, the wheels are going to go off this one real fast. Nadia, my wonderful co-host, Nadia Oxford, how are you doing?
I'm okay, but now I'm just thinking about I don't know if you ever smoked in Canada, but our cigarettes have really big, huge ass, nasty warning images of cancerous lungs and rotting flesh, and saying, yeah, if you smoke these, this will happen to you, asshole. And most people that I know collect them like Pokemon cards, so I don't think they're very effective. But I'm hoping SDCC has Wolverine kind of lying in bed with
Don't
an
smoke,
IV.
bub.
Don't smoke cigars, bub. But with the way they're glorifying gambling and stuff like that nowadays, I think it's only a matter of time before they have kids collect Pokemon cards on cigarette packets again.
Mm-hmm.
I did it as a kid. It was fine. It wasn't it wasn't like Pokemon cards. It was chocolate cigarettes. So you got your fancy, just like dad package and everything like that. Oh dear God.
Our wonderful our wonderful guest, Liana Hafer. What Marvel character or DC character would you like to tell you not to smoke?
Well, I'm puffing on this Young Avengers jewel right now. So that's like the cool kids
Smoking on that Young Justice.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's Kate Bishop, the Kate Bishop one. She's my favorite Young Avenger, but probably would tell you not to smoke. Yeah.
Are you serious right now? You got the Avengers jewel on you?
No.
Okay. Because I was gonna be like,
that was part of the bit.
I was like, that's kind of crazy that they would there probably is a place that puts superhero characters on vapes. That's probably a thing, right? There's no way that's not.
In some U.S. gas station, someone's doing it. U.S. gas stations are just chaos portals.
The forbidden gas station Marvel jewel.
Yeah. It's Disney's probably not happy about it, but someone's probably doing it. Yeah.
Not Disney approved.
We're not talking about jewels today. We're talking about knights. That's right. Today is a class conscious episode. For those of you who don't know, this is where we go and look at a specific class or or archetype within the world of RPGs and kind of explore all the ways in which it has been realized over the course of RPG history. And today we're talking about knights, the glorious warriors, shield, sword, sometimes horse, dragon, steed of some kind. There's always something in there. We'll be talking about knights today in RPGs, but first, we are Axe the Blood God, an independent RPG podcast. You can go support us at patreon.com/bloodgodpod. You can find us on Blue Sky. You can find us on Twitch right here, twitch.tv/bloodgodpod, or on YouTube. I don't think we're youtube.com/bloodgodpod. I don't know if that's been taken or not, but we are on YouTube where all of our stuff uploads as well.
I think we are Blood God Pod on YouTube.
Are we Blood God? Okay, that's good.
Yeah.
Glad we got that.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
We have tons of stuff going on right now. I believe we are still in the midst of the Trails in the Sky SC Pantheon, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes. I think that'll be probably not this week, but next week.
Right. Yeah. Which means a new Pantheon vote will be coming up, and a full-on Pantheon vote for our next game for the Pantheon. We also are in the midst of our side quest for Magic the Gathering and its influence on RPG and RPG's influence on Magic the Gathering. So we did a whole stream last week where I played the early access for Edge of Eternities, and I can confirm here live on air that Wizards of the Coast was very kind, sent us a bunch of cards, including the commander decks for Edge of Eternities. So this coming week, we will be doing another Commander Showdown where Kat will be piloting one of the commanders. I believe it's the counter intelligence commander, the +1/+1 one, which is interesting. I might air this out on the pod. Kat was like, I want the counterintelligence precon, so I ended up with the other one, which is like a landfall sacrifice lands deck, which is kind of neat. It's kind of interesting. But Kat wanted the counters one, which is weird because I play the Tidus precon, and that is a counters deck. That is a raw ass counters deck. And I was
Tidus
like,
likes it raw, is what you're telling me.
Are we outside the 5 minutes? Are we not demonetized yet? Yeah. So Titus likes number go up, and I, you know what? I was kind. I said, all right, you want that one? You take that one. You go for it. Via con
I had
Dios.
forgotten about taking it raw.
I had forgotten about Raw. God.
Len, do you know anything about Magic? Because I know Bubkas.
So, interestingly, that we were talking about addictive substances earlier. I had to stop playing Magic because I was like fully addicted in college. Like to the point that if I walk by the aisle where the Magic cards are, I feel like a craving to go buy Magic cards. I feel like I was brainwashed by Wizards of the Coast. I haven't seriously played it in a long time competitively, but yeah, I had a very, very where did my paycheck go Magic the Gathering phase for a couple of years there.
Yeah, I'm like not there yet, but I can feel myself approaching the zenith of it, and yeah, we gotta watch that. Luckily, you know, when Wizards of the Coast sends you cards, that helps offset the the reduction a little bit. So thank you, Wizards of the Coast, for sponsoring that Commander Showdown. Anyways, beyond that, we also have a sister podcast, Charlene Dropouts, our Final Fantasy 11 and 14 content. Victor has been doing a lot of great stuff over there. Make sure you go check out Charlene Dropouts at your earliest convenience. And anything else we got to shout out? I'm trying to think. We did the Patreon. Oh, our Stars of Destiny. Each week we like to shout out a Star of Destiny. And I clearly spent long hours, time and energy and attention prepping for this exact moment in which I would have to shout out one of our precious Stars of Destiny, in which I would have to look and hopefully guess somebody that's not on the list because I don't have the list yet.
I am not wearing a tie at all.
So this week we're going to shout out, I'm so sorry, I've never seen your name before, Eseal. You're new. I'm going to shout you out. Eseal, Eseell. I hope I'm getting that right. I was going to go with
a seal.
Yeah, not a seal. We do like seals around these parts. They're all right.
I love seals. Seals are like one of my favorite animals. I love leopard seals.
But Eseal, Eseal, whoever you are, thank you so much for contributing and helping us do what we do here at Axe the Blood God. All right, let's talk about knights. Knights in RPGs. What are they? You know, we had an interesting conversation before we got on here about what a knight entails, because I think there's a pretty wide margin for what a knight can be, and I think that might be the best starting place. Is Len, our wonderful guest, how do you define a knight?
Yeah, so I think I would typically think of three things that sort of like embody the classic knight archetype, the most sort of vanilla perhaps version of the knight archetype, which is this is somebody who wears heavy armor. They are sort of the tank or the defender of the party. They're protecting the other members, and they live by some kind of code of honor. They have a moral, they've taken an oath, or they have some kind of moral value system that sort of guides their decisions. And then there's many permutations off of that, but as far as like what is the classic knight to me, it's kind of those three things.
Yeah. Something I put on the notes is that being an old person who started RPGs very early in her life, I kind of think of the knight as a quintessential hero. Like, what is the earliest story other than like the knight rescues the maiden from the dragon? And there weren't too many variations thereof for quite some time in video games. So that's what I think when I think of knight. But it's funny because you think, well, Dragon Quest is exactly like that, but that's a hero. That's not a knight. There's a difference.
That was going to be my question, is the hero a knight, or do we feel like that's a distinction?
I feel like in Dragon Quest, you have the soldier who is like what Len described, like the tank / damage dealer, usually at the expense of magic. Whereas a knight in Final Fantasy typically has some kind of weak white magic. The hero in Dragon Quest they have a they have their own set of spells, the infamous Zapple spells, as Eric now knows.
The Zapple.
Uh, the Zapple. So in Dragon Quest, yes, there is a distinct difference because the hero can't quite wear as heavy armor as the soldier. You have to kind of travel a little bit on the lighter side. I think it's more of a chainmail versus plate armor kind of thing. Although sometimes they can wield both, but it's not to their benefit. So yeah, when I think of knight, I do think of that chivalry, I'll that milady energy.
Milady. Yeah,
Milady.
I think having a code is definitely important for a knight. Having some sort of honor or someone they are protecting or some version of a standard, I guess, is what I would look for. But I'll even pose some ideas that I was thinking of as we were going that I think might break those rules a little bit. But I think within certain series, they also start to develop their own ideas of what a knight archetype is. Because I would say that maybe within Dragon Quest, the hero does become kind of the stereotypical knight. But in Final Fantasy, we see the knight archetype become more of a class than a
Yeah.
specific narrative function. And I would say characters like Auron from Final Fantasy X serve a knight role and definitely use knight abilities, but do not fill the classic knight archetype. Unless I guess you can consider a guardian a knight, that might count. But it's very interesting to look at knights over the years and see how they kind of evolve and adapt to each story, because I think the quintessential knight in RPGs, to throw one out, I do think is one Adalbert Steiner from Final Fantasy IX. I think that is just
Yeah, he's
classic
a knight's knight.
Yeah. he's your favorite knight's favorite knight. You know, he's the one that's locked in. He looks the part, he acts the
He
part.
really does.
But he's also you also think of the knight as this stoic character, and I don't think I would define Steiner as stoic, and that's
No,
kind
I
of the
would
difference.
say another example in Final Fantasy IX is Beatrix. She's
Hmm.
actually classified as a paladin, which is a subclass of knight in this case. We're going to count it, and she's of course devoted to protecting the royal family of Alexandria, as is Steiner, except he's much more bumbling about it. So he's kind of the comic relief, while Beatrix is the one who's really locked in and will take your head off.
So let's start. Let's name some categories of knight then, because we had an interesting time while we were defining knight, even thinking about subcategories of knight. Because if we wanted to, we could probably do a class conscious on each one of these. But we
Absolutely.
almost, full disclosure, almost did a paladins class conscious, and then
Hmm.
felt that it would have been a little too thin. And so paladins are kind of getting rolled into this, but paladins are ones that could maybe even prop up their own class conscious. So are dark knights, I would say.
Yeah,
I
I
think
love
those
Dark
are.
Knight.
I think the light and the dark acts as a really good kind of uh, yin and yang, like a balance to the knight archetype. Like when you're going to specialize the knight, going into a light or a dark knight always tends to be the option. And
Hmm.
that's an interesting thing to see. But then you also have like mystic knights. You have onion knights. You have mog knights. I mean, Len, do you have any favorite subcategories of knight?
Yeah, I mean, I added the Death Knight to the list, which is kind of you described the Dark Knight as emo, whereas like I think the Death Knight is like the death
Is
metal
metal, yeah.
version of a knight. Like they're both kind of anti knights. They're both kind of inverting the sort of purer form of the archetype, but they
The
usually have kind of an undead, spooky theme to them.
is a Death Knight. The only one I know of is Lord Soth from Dragonlance, so I'm guessing there's some kind of D&D component going on here.
Warcraft, like World of
Oh,
Warcraft, has a
Warcraft.
Arthas,
Death Knight
yeah.
class. Now, Arthas is kind of, I mean, the probably in gaming the archetypical Death Knight. Yeah, they're tend to be kind of like a plate wearing necromancer is sort of the way I would describe them. But yeah, it's interesting because I would almost say magic is what sets a knight, like a pure knight archetype, apart from some of these other ones. Like I would say if they can cast healing spells, at that point that's a paladin, which is a
Hmm.
type of knight, but
I
like a pure knight is almost more like a fighter with a code than a spellcaster.
I
And they'll
I
use cover.
I do like that Death Knights, especially within the Warcraft universe, can use like the death coil, which can heal undead units but damage living units, and I think that's really good flavor that harkens back to the core of the knight, right? The idea of they do help and harm equally, but for a death knight, it's inverted, and the death coil ends up being this really interesting spell because of it. I've always liked that spell design a lot. Nadia, do you have a favorite knight subtype?
I like the Dark Knights. You have not done the Dark Knight quest in Final Fantasy XIV, have you?
No, I haven't. Because I refuse to tank. Good. I refuse to tank.
It's some of the best writing I have read in a video game, especially the bits where Ishikawa kind of chimes in. The knight, the knight class, the Dark Knight class in Final Fantasy XIV. First of all, it has kind of an interesting origin where in Heaven's Word it mentions that there was a priest in Ishgard who was doing things to orphans in the Broom, and one of the Templar Knights killed him, and in Ishgard you're put on trial by combat or whatever, and he won the trial by combat so he could live, but he was obviously like disgraced and stripped of his knightdom, so he became a Dark Knight, and that's how you meet characters like Frey, which basically hijacks your game and kind of like emphasizes your own frustrations with being a hero. And suddenly everything that was in the third person in your quest log is first person. And you're doing all these stupid tasks like, some guy says, go save my box from those rat creatures, hero. And you go and you help them and you bring back the box and they're like, it's covered in guts, you terrible hero. And you start to lose it. But by the end of this quest line, because of course it's several expansions like most Final Fantasies, you just kind of learn about acceptance. And there's this last line that's like, you are still a hero, you are still a good person that kills me. And like, who could I love but you? Which is Frey talking to you, saying, I can't remember this whole speech, but it's just a really, really good piece of fourth wall breaking / game writing. Even if you're not a tank, like it's the only tank I have, Eric, because I wanted to have the story. So,
I played the quest for the story.
It is a good story.
It's not a hot take at all, but I think it's the best job quest in Final Fantasy XIV. Like the best written, at least. So
it builds across the expansions, because there's also the expansions where you travel with that. The Aura, who's also the Dark Knight, and he has the protege kid, who I can't remember her name, but she's the orphan who, her father was a heretic who drank dragon's blood, so her mother locked her away. And the end of that whole quest is like, do you forgive your mother for what she did to you? No, I don't. And you kill her. And it's just, so good.
Yeah.
I'm not even spoiling that because it's just so good.
I'll have to try it. One archetype that I forgot to put on here, but that Anthrax pointed out in the chat, Pegasus Knights from Fire Emblem.
Oh, I love Pegasus Knights.
We love Pegasus Knights. The triangle attack, I think, is such a core part of Fire Emblem's identity that when it's not there or when it's not activatable, it's weird. It's weird when it's missing. And I think those characters have always come to define that game because they're the first units that kind of break the weapons triangle within the series. So you have kind of your sword, axe, lance, and that is kind of your basis for your early missions early on. And then usually around in a classic Fire Emblem, maybe like Chapter 5, Chapter 6, Chapter 7, you get a Pegasus Knight. And now it's, okay, there's weapons you have to worry about, but there's also archers and flyers. And that's something you have to be aware of. And they're constant risk and reward, but they can be units that absolutely break the game. If you train them right, if you raise them right, if you use them correctly, they can be devastatingly powerful. And I've always really liked that about them is they're kind of the glass cannons next to the mercenaries of Fire Emblem, but they can do so much.
I'm afraid to use them because they're so easy to bring down. But if you know how to use them effectively, like they, as you say, they can break the game.
Yeah. And they also have great character designs. I also love the Wyvern Knights of the Fire Emblems too. When they have those, they're always really, really fun. What do we think makes a good knight? Like what is the quality of a good knight in a game? Is it just having that chivalric sense of honor? Is it that sense of they're upstanding, they are this kind of classic archetype of a character, or do they have to have a little bit more going on, like we were talking about with the Dark Knights?
I think it really is about a great knight in an RPG for me is somebody who lives by a code and is frequently put in to interesting situations where that code might conflict with what is best for the
Absolutely.
party, what is best for
Yeah.
the world, what is best for their friends, what they feel morally in their heart. Where it's like, okay, I took this oath, but that oath is going to be tested. It's going to be challenged. It's not always going to be the absolute obvious thing to do is to uphold my oath. That's what really I think makes it interesting to me.
Yeah, I think my favorite knight for that reason is actually Cecil from Final Fantasy IV, because
Mhm.
he starts off not really knowing what's right, or and he realizes, okay, well, genocide is wrong, so I'm going to reject this, and he gets exiled for it, and then he has to seek forgiveness, by which involves climbing Mount Ordeals with his like useless dark armor, giving it up, and fighting himself to become a paladin. And I think that's really cool because he discovers early on, well, these are my sins. This is my repentance, and now I'm going to save the world. He had to build his own code from the start of the game.
Yeah, when I think of like a really really good knight, I do agree with Len and Nadia here that the idea of having your ideals or your the code you live by potentially compromised, having to ration with this ideal of what the world could be, and struggle with what the world is
Mhm.
really really core to the identity, because I think that is a knight at the end of the day. Is it's somebody who embodies an ideal and believes that that ideal is absolute, is and you would think in a perfect world should be easy to follow, but routinely is faced with the realities of living in a world where ideals are not so easily manifested. But then the knight becomes compelling because they try to live by it in spite of that. And I think
Mhm.
that's when the best knight characters emerge. And I think that's why paladins kind of got folded in here, is because paladins also kind of do the same thing as the paladins have the oaths, and those are a little
Yes.
Mhm.
bit more stern often. It's like you have to live by the paladin oath, you have to do paladin things because that is the oath you have created. But then you have the oath breakers and stuff like that. You can get into some really cool stuff. I think Baldur's Gate 3 does probably the best it could have with a virtual environment trying to embody that spirit of a character. I'd still say sometimes it doesn't always get there, because I think there's always just going to be a little bit of trouble trying to translate all of the massive play space of a tabletop in-person thing into a virtual space. But I do think the way they incorporated oath breaking and having that be a part of your character's journey ends up making it really interesting, especially if you're playing the what was it, the Dark Urge or whatever, the
Yeah.
Mhm.
created, the story created character in Oathbreaker ends up being a really compelling character in that light. But I'll also say I threw this out before, and I promised I would explain on the pod. I think Lae'zel might be the knight of Baldur's Gate 3, and I'll tell you why. Lae'zel lives by a code. The like she does everything for the Githyanki, lives by the Githyanki code. Is like when everyone else is like, we should find a healer and get these things out of our head, she's like, no, we gotta follow protocol, we gotta go back to
Mhm.
the base, we gotta report in, we gotta do all this stuff. She does have a steed. She does. I mean, she
Yeah.
doesn't have one for most of the game, but she does eventually get a steed back, and also kind of uses your traditional knight accoutrement, heavy armor, big sword, gets into the fray of things. But she also, I think, Lae'zel ended up being one of my favorite characters from Baldur's Gate 3 because of the way that the revelations of the plot force her to question her code and question the way that she was raised. And you end up having a lot of really interesting conflicts and permutations from that, of like outcomes that could happen if you think that she should follow that order still, or if she should find a new order. And that, I think, makes her a really, really compelling knight style character. Len, you'd floated the idea of Will, and I think Will does embody some of the folk hero aspects that you were talking about. If you want to elaborate more on that?
Well, I think what Lae'zel misses of the classic knight archetype is sort of the protector part of it,
Right.
which she's a very aggro. She's like a two-handed, or she at least starts out as like a two-handed sword wielding kind of. She does charge into the fray, but she's more focused towards doing damage than she is assisting the party. Whereas
she's
Will
the blade
definitely
of the queen rather than the shield of the queen, right?
Right. Yeah, Will, I think, embodies the ethics of a knight more, which is interesting because he's a warlock. I think that was kind of a clever inversion of a trope they did there.
Yeah.
He's more of what I would think of. He has the personality of a knight and sort of the value system of a knight. But I do think you do have a point with Lae'zel's code. I noticed Drew RWX in chat was asking, is the code allowed to be dumb and a bad idea to follow? And I think
absolutely.
Some of the most interesting knights are knights who are sworn either to someone who is a bad person or to a code that ends up not really leading them to do the right thing.
Yeah.
In a lot of situations. Like, I kind of think it's almost boring if the oath you are sworn to is just kind of unambiguously be a good person.
Be nice to puppies.
Yeah, there needs to be some reason to have tension in there that creates interesting internal conflicts and external conflicts for your character.
Yeah. Again, Cecil is like kind of bound to the king and said, well, I have to do what he says. And he says, no, screw this. I'm not going to do what he says. So. But at first, yes.
I think something that came up was also, our samurai knights. And I do think a samurai adheres to a lot of the same tenets, similar like devotion to a lord or a code. But then you have the idea of historically, as sort of the establishment falls and the world changes, samurai become ronin and become wandering warriors, and knights become mercenaries and freelancers. And I think that is something that we're seeing games tackle a little bit more often now too, the idea of the knight that has lost their way possibly or used to fight for a lord but now has no direction forward. The sellsword knight is always a really, really good archetype for a character. I think that's something that Final Fantasy Tactics really does well, and Tactics Ogre as well. I always like it when those games get into the idea of a soldier that used to fight for a cause, maybe fought for a cause that lost the war, and now is just kind of a wandering warrior. And what do you do when your ideal, took to the field of battle and lost? You've been told that the thing you fought for is wrong because it lost in the forum in which you know how to debate, right?
You're out of the debate club.
Yeah, or even the knight that failed, like the knight whose liege was killed and they're consumed with guilt because they couldn't do the one thing they were, supposed to do.
What about Frog from Chrono Trigger? His mentor, he couldn't save him. He was disgraced.
I think a lot about this stuff because I think one thing that the knight embodies that is fairly universal. We think of the knight sometimes as I think almost a caricature, like very tropey, as maybe not bound by reality in a empathetic way, because we're like, oh, this person is comically tied to their oaths, to what they do, to their devotions, and that doesn't seem like something that an average person would do. But this is a reach. I apologize for this, but this is a reach. In Normandy FM, we've been talking a lot about Nier Automata because that's our game of the season, and there's a great line at the end of Route B in Nier Automata where revelations are happening. I will not spoil the plotline of Nier Automata, but there's a character that says to another, like, people needed a god to fight for, and we gave it to them. And
I remember that.
That hits because I think ultimately, while a knight's cause, the idea that you would fight and die for an ideal, for a code, for a person that you think is worthy of it might seem outlandish. The idea that people do need a drive to push them forward in life is very much understandable, and I think that makes the knight a compelling character, is when you have characters that embody that sense of what drives them, what pushes them forward, and how do they ration with that when that hits the spokes of reality. And I'm going to use this to segue into what I think is maybe the best modern archetypal knight, is one of the characters that Liana brought up when we were first talking about this episode. And so I'm going to bounce it to you for a little talk about Hulkenberg. The Hulkenberg.
Yeah,
brother. I'm dead, brother.
Oh, I look.
The good Hulk. The good
Hulk. Good Hulk. Light Hulk.
We love Hulkenberg in this house.
The Hulk that's going to heaven. Let me put it that way.
Yeah, I mean, this was the first character that came to my mind when I saw the tweet about, hey, do you want to come talk about knights on this podcast? Just because I feel like this is a relationship I have not necessarily ever had with a character in another RPG before, where, again, I'm going to try to avoid spoilers here, but it's a knight who is devoted to you, and it's not a romantic thing. There's not even a possibility of it becoming a romantic thing, which is something Metaphor did that I think actually turned out to be really clever, as much as people complained about it. But as someone who, I know that what you believe in is me, and what you believe in is that I am going to make the right choices, and I am going to lead the world to a better place. And so you have completely devoted yourself. You're if you were a D&D paladin, if Hulkenberg was a D&D paladin, her oath would be to you, the player character, the party leader, the MC. And that plays out in a really touching way, especially in sort of the upper levels of her social link, where I didn't feel like it was blind devotion, but the fact that someone believes in you that much and is brought at some point to tears by the opportunity to serve the things you stand for, that was really special. I really, really liked her arc a lot.
I think Hulkenberg is really, really effective as a character for a lot of reasons, because Hulkenberg gets to embody all the versions of a knight. When you have her level up, she gets to be both a light knight and a dark knight, and I think that's really interesting.
That's
and
cool.
At first I was like, that's kind of a it's a video gamey thing to be like, oh, light knight, dark knight is always kind of associated with plot ties. I think Final Fantasy IV is largely responsible for that. The idea that a character's archetype and their kind of their grounding is based in whether they have gone one direction or another, and it's one of the few classes where I think their upgraded forms end up revealing more about the morality of the character than necessarily the specialization and skills of the character, compared to, say, a mage, where it might just be the type of magic they use or something like that. A healer versus a damage dealer. A knight always ends up having their heart revealed, and so Hulkenberg at first using both of those kind of felt strange, but then as the game goes on and you ultimately get to the royal archetypes, you become a knight that embodies all aspects of a knight. And I think that was a really cool moment where I felt that concept of the morality of a knight come full circle. And why I like Hulkenberg so much as a knight is that Hulkenberg fails. Hulkenberg becomes a wandering warrior, becomes one of the few people left that is trying to still fulfill her charge and fulfill her role as a knight, holds on to her ideals even in the face of them disappearing in front of her because of her actions, and finds a chance for redemption and takes it, and really stands by you, like you said, for that chance at redemption and the chance to become the knight that she wants to be. And I think she is honestly one of the most compelling characters in the game because of that. And you have other knightly characters in that game. Obviously, you have Heismay, who is a former knight, and things like that. I think a lot of the characters in that game do embody some level of chivalric ideas or codes or stuff like that, but Hulkenberg is the one who has stayed determined through all of it and ends up embodying the archetype because of it. And then when you have that play out in the game, oh my god, her design as a character,
So
it
good.
might be some of my favorite.
amazing.
End game metaphor refantasio, Hulkenberg was putting the team on her back. The way that she
Yeah.
throw down the taunt, and then you can
Yeah.
have so many different ways. I love here's like a crazy thing. I love a knight that has a counter, because I think that we too often think of knights as the shield, but I love a knight that can shield bash, you know, that swats the sword out of the way and then strikes back, and that's always really
Yeah.
sick. And Hulkenberg has so many ways of doing that, and then also providing the supporting, the damage dealing magic, the holy magic that kind of helps the team and keeps them on their feet, and feels like a rallying cause, you know, feels like she is bringing the party together in that moment. She's the jack of all trades of that game, and really, I think, a fantastic character that Atlas really knocked it out of the park on, especially considering you think of other Atlas games, other Atlas RPGs, they don't have a lot of traditional knight archetypes, you know.
Yeah.
I was trying to
Yeah.
think of if there's a Persona user that maybe kind of feels like a knight character or something like that. And I couldn't really come up with anything. And so it's amazing that Atlas hit it so far out of the park on this
Yeah.
one.
Well, and again, just the narrative space of most other Atlas RPGs, you kind of have two types of bonds, which is a romantic bond, and then there's like a bro, is kind of like a bromance thing. Is
yeah.
kind of,
Oh,
and I really love the idea of RPGs exploring other types of like really intimate bonds that can exist between people that are not
I
like,
agree.
oh yeah, bruh, and they're not like, I want to kiss you, you know, I want to marry you, like, and like Hulkenberg's bond with the MC is so profound, but does not fit any of those sort of common tropes, and I really really like that.
There's
Yeah,
there's
so do
the
I.
there's the bit when you're recruiting Heismay, and it's Hulkenberg. Oh my god, why did I forget his name? The
Your bro.
Yeah, the bro. It starts with an S. It's an S something. Stroll? Stroll.
Stroll, yeah.
Yeah,
Yep,
yeah.
yeah.
It's the main character is Stroll and Hulkenberg banging the pots and
The
pans.
pots, yeah.
And I was just like, man, dudes parentheses non-gendered rock. Like that that was the moment of like
Yeah,
dudes
yeah.
rocking, man. That was
And
three people
kinda
with one brain cell.
making reference to the fact with like Stroll calls Hulkenberg like the great she beast of something or other because she'll eat anything.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the other great thing is that she's like Goku and she's just obsessed with food and stuffing her face all the time, which is a fun subversion of the sort of chivalric, noble
Refinement. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Her food is so utilitarian. It's like why
Yeah.
we need to consume the meat. We simply need
Yeah.
to eat the meat so we can grow stronger. Yeah.
Makes sense.
Any other knights we want to shout out? We made a list before we got on here. If you're in chat right now, please shout out some knights. I'm sure if you got them in the comments, we don't mention them. Please be sure to drop them in the comments as well. I did want to say Blackwall from Dragon Age Inquisition, I think is a really interesting character that I would kind of put under the knight thing, because he is this character that ends up kind of embodying the wandering sword, wandering warrior archetype, and then inverting it over and over and over again. He ends up having one of the more interesting plot lines of Dragon Age Inquisition because of the ways in which that, you know, he has failed in the past and continues to fail, but wants to do better. And I think he really embodies that very well. Okay, so Freya is being brought up. We did have the conversation about whether a dragoon is a knight. And
You did, and
I think it counts. Yeah.
yeah,
in Final Fantasy IV, they are explicitly called Dragon Knights. They just call dragoons here.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea is that they are a kind of a hereditary-based organization because it takes 15 years to train up a dragon. So they don't really recruit outsiders.
We do have to mention Flynn from Tales of Vesperia, a fantastic knight. It kind of embodies again that light knight to Yuri in his Dark Knight. Which, by the way, if you love Final Fantasy IV, you should play Tales of Vesperia. Just going to put that out there. You're not going to understand until you do understand. Tales of Vesperia, man, that's a good ass.
Hey, have you played 4? You got to play 4.
No, I'm not there yet. I started 9, and also I'm probably going to stop playing 9. Okay, don't kill me. We'll talk about it in the tavern. All right, we'll talk about 9 in the tavern.
Lance Hart mentions Nightman EXE from Mega Man Battle Network. Princess What's Her Face. Actually, fun fact: Nightman in Mega Man 6 was designed by a Canadian.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Cassandra from Dragon Age Inquisition as well. Also a good shout there. Dragon Age has a lot of knights. You have Alistair, you have Aveline.
Well, Dragon Age is interesting because the Grey Wardens, it kind of goes beyond I took an oath and like swore, cross my heart, hope to die. Like they actually metaphysically have inducted themselves into this order where like it's guaranteed that you're gonna die and you're gonna have bad dreams about monsters for the rest of your life so that you can hunt them down. Like it's like a knight with a biological component, which
that's sick as hell. It's really cool.
Yeah.
Number 2, I miss that deal because I just have bad dreams about monsters all the time. Why do I not get sick Grey Warden powers? Where was my deal? So, but also, I like that. I've said it before. To be honest, I think the Dragon Age Grey Wardens are. I don't know the timeline. I don't know if this realistically lines up, but they're basically the. What's the Jon Snow order in Game of Thrones?
Night Watch.
The Night Watch. They're basically the Night Watch. That's their thing. It's the same thing, and they just added like a biological component. But also, I do think Dragon Age did enough to separate itself because even if it was inspired by the Night Watch, I do like the Poison Child. I think the opening to Dragon Age Origins still stands as one of the coolest openings to an RPG in a game because you get the catered opening for your character, like a little session 0 for your character, and then you immediately go into, hey, drink this chalice, and like 2 dudes in front of you die. It's like, maybe you won't. Oh, it's so good. I miss RPG openings like that. I mean, I'm sure we've talked about this, Len. I think Baldur's Gate 3 brought back the advent of the great RPG opening and stellar setup. Cyberpunk too. Cyberpunk has a pretty good setup depending on what background you pick.
Cyberpunk also takes your character origin into account, which is maybe one of the things that I was a little disappointed about Baldur's Gate 3 is it doesn't really care where your character came from that much. But Well, I also had Henry on here from Kingdom Come Deliverance, who's not technically a knight. He is not dubbed a knight, but he's sort of interesting because
he's on the path.
He strips away a lot of the fantasy genre tropes. It's just like, okay, but like, what was a knight really historically? Like, he's a guy in armor with a sword, and he's sworn an oath to serve a lord, and he's kind of like a jumped up mercenary a little bit. Like this is Hans Capon is also interesting because he is explicitly a knight and he's kind of a pampered rich boy, which is probably more like what a historical knight would be like.
Side note, I love the name Capon for a stuck up knight. That's fantastic.
Yeah, it is great. Yeah, so like if you're interested in like what is a historical knight, that might be one of the better games to show you what that lifestyle would have actually been like, which is, not always very glamorous.
I was gonna say what little I know of medieval knights is like this lifestyle is not glamorous, and chivalry is completely different from what we think it is.
Yeah, I mean, and even The Witcher gets into that. Is like, what is a baron? Well, it's a bandit who did well enough to stay in one place for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, even like, is a Witcher a knight is an interesting conversation to have because I don't think a Witcher is enough of a knight, but definitely embodies aspects of the Ronin to definitely embody some of that, and a Ronin is an offshoot of a knight. So I think there's a narrative lineage. Someone brought up the idea that I'm a Poe knight or something. I'm a knight for Poe. No, I'm a Beastmaster.
You're a Beastmaster.
Yeah, that's.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
We should do a
Yeah.
Beastmaster episode sometime.
We really
we
should.
did summoners already, and I think we talked about whether a Beastmaster is a summoner because we talked about whether a Pokemon trainer counts as a summoner. But I think Beastmaster / Beast Tamer and Summoner are two different archetypes at the end of the day. Yeah, no, I think. Also, does a knight need a steed? I don't think a knight needs a steed.
Doesn't
I do
need
think it
one,
helps.
but
It is a
it
flavorful
helps.
addition. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was gonna say in Ragnarok Online, you become a knight because you want the Peko Peko mount, which is like basically their version of a chocobo.
I think that is maybe the
Yeah.
aspect in which Persona does have a knight because you have Makoto in P5 who gets Joanna, which is a motorcycle.
Motorcycle
Thought
boat.
about that.
And
Yeah.
she's the one character who all of their personas kind of everyone else's persona is kind of a like a JoJo's stand who kind of fights for them and does stuff for them, but Makoto gets a motorcycle that she rides and continues to fight on. And I think eventually when it persona evolves or whatever it's called, I think it does then become anthropomorphic, which is kind of a bummer because I like riding the motorcycle as your summoned steed and being the fighter. I think that's one of my favorite things in general is when a character like has kind of a summoned fighter, so like a stand or something like that, and so you think
Yeah.
that is going to be they're going to be the powerhouse and the main person is weak, or like a mage who's a summoner, but then it turns out that they are actually the fighter and the summoner is back, the summons that they're calling in are backing them up. Jujutsu Kaisen does that very well, and I think also the Fate Stay Night series has an incredible character when it comes to that. Or you become a Beastmaster for a cat that just wants to step on everything. So yeah, third form is
Well,
a
again,
train.
like historically, that would have been one of the things that would distinguish a knight because they were rich and horses were expensive, and if you could fight on horseback, that was generally better. There was a higher chance of winning and survival. So yeah.
Poe is literally attached to my arm right now. Like,
I
like
always wondered about that.
he's full on like just on my arm.
Like you see battle
Yeah.
scenes, and like of course, there's fact and fiction, but like you see just people charging at like phalanxes with horses, and those were expensive, and they just died, huh? Like,
A lot of them did, yeah.
just
Well,
what did they do? Like have a steady supply of horses back then?
Well, usually the
I mean,
people who are
yeah.
charging him with armor and horses are the ones that own land and stuff. There were a lot of peasants getting murdered.
Yeah, most nobles would own more than one horse. Like your horse that you would ride into the charge was not the same one you'd have carry your stuff because you'd have
That
like a
makes sense.
pampered
Yeah.
horse. But yeah, even like Warcraft does this. Like most of the other classes, they get level 40 or whatever it is now. It used to be 40. They go buy a horse. The paladin goes on this huge long quest to get a special horse because a horse is such an important part of their thing. I think in like D&D now there's, or maybe it's Pathfinder, like you get an ability where you can summon a spectral horse onto the battlefield or something at a certain point.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, there is definitely that aspect to that. A knight or a paladin is specifically a mounted warrior that I think is fairly common.
In Fire Emblem, you have a lot of classes that when they level up, their improvement is that they get a horse, right? So they just go from being a healer to healer with horse. And
or a foot soldier to a horse soldier.
I do think there are a few that, because there's the bow knights and stuff like that in Fire Emblem.
Oh, they're awesome.
I was trying to think of if there's a foot soldier, like a sword user or anything that does get a horse when they level up, because
maybe not.
there's-
Maybe they have to start with horses and then
yeah, I think a lot of them do have to start with horses, and it's kind of the weaker classes where then like them getting more mobility is the genuine upgrade, and they embody that with a horse. FE8
like
spear
Donnie with
user.
of Awakening.
Oh, do the spear users end up getting horses? Is that a thing? I know a lot of the cavalry, because
so.
cavalry is like a base class in Fire Emblem. There is one. Okay. It's been a while since I played FE8. This is the moment where I have to go back and now re-earn my Fire Emblem status. Oh, the recruit character. Yeah. Okay, I know who you're talking about now.
Yeah.
Is
That's
that
why I
like
mentioned
is that
Donnie.
the Donald? Yeah, is it the Donald of the game? We love Donald.
Oh,
That's
Donnie
we
boy.
I would love to also do an episode at some point about, I don't know what you call them, but the Donalds of RPGs, the characters that start out and they're the weakest possible class, and
The
they
up and comers.
they basically die if you sneeze on them, but then because they have so much time for growth and so much room for growth, become the most busted fuckers in the game. Like
Yeah. Oh yeah. I love
Like
that kind of
in
art.
Breath
those
of
those
Fire
are the
3,
best.
that's Echo.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Those are some of my favorite characters in games, to be honest. Yeah,
Or
characters with big
Magikarp.
potential. A
Magikarp.
magic
Think of
card.
it
Yeah.
like that.
Does
Perfect
can
example.
I mean Gyarados does become pretty good. I don't know. Has Gyarados ever been OP in Poet? This is a cat question.
That's definitely a cat question. I always like to have a Gyarados on hand that I raised from Magikarp. I usually name it Super Joe out of tradition.
Super
Nice.
Joe.
Super Joe is a bionic commando
Oh, okay, okay.
slash commando thing.
Oh,
Yeah. Well,
Knights.
the other iconic knight I definitely wanted to talk about was Artorias from
Yeah.
Dark Souls 1
Uh-huh.
because I think he tells the story of someone who is devoted to a code who is driven completely mad by that code. He's led to ruin by sort of a direct subversion of that which he worships, which I find to also be a really interesting take on the, he's the happiest guy when you meet him. He's just happy. He's praising the sun.
Oh,
He's on this
not Artorias, Solaire.
or Solaire. I'm sorry.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, they're
Artorias
both
also
on
a great
here.
knight. Yeah. Artorias also a great
and
knight.
both also driven to madness.
Yes,
Yeah, no, Solaire is who I'm talking about. Yeah, and it's kind of foreshadowing that he's so happy-go-lucky and he thinks this is some great, amazing storybook fairy tale quest, and then you look at everything around you and you're like, I don't know,
Bro.
man, it's kind of fucked up here.
Bro.
And then I don't know if people still consider Dark Souls spoilers from 2011, but
No.
is very literally blinded by the fact that the way he sees the world is so different from how it actually is.
Yeah.
So
Definitely a tragic character.
yeah.
There's a character in the recent game Wanderstop that is very Solaire coded. Who Wanderstop is a game where you're running a tea shop that people who wander into the woods kind of get caught up in, and so you're there because you're trying to solve your own problems, and you end up trying to solve yourself by running this tea shop and kind of helping other people as they solve their problems, and all of them are wandering in the woods. It's a very like fairy tale story in that way. And one of the characters who shows up is a knight, and he decided to become a knight because he thought his son would start to idolize him if he became a knight. He was like, my son doesn't think I'm cool, but if I become like the greatest knight in the land, he'll have to think I'm cool. And the second time he shows up, he has like a curse on his foot, and you can be like, hey, that seems bad. You getting that checked out soon or anything? And he's just like, oh, don't worry about it. I'm a knight. Like, knights, nothing bad ever happens to a knight, right?
Nothing bad ever happens to the Kennedy.
TLDR, things escalate, and but I love the idea of this knight who sets out with such a bright ideal journey, and I think even using the idea of not him wanting to, we talk about having a lord, having a cause, but also having like a son, having someone you care about that you want to like see you in that way. The ideal you want to embody is an image you want to project for the people you care about is also an interesting inversion of the knight that I really, really like. And that was a really surprising moment. Wanderstop is a game that I continue to think about months and months on. It's an interesting little thing.
It sounds like very similar to a Tezuka story I read way back in the day, which was it was from a series that he did called Phoenix, which is magnum opus. Never finished it, unfortunately. But there was like a sub story about someone who, as like punishment for their sins, had to sit in a kind of a woods between the world situation, and there was a war going on between Buddhism and the Shinto yokai and whatnot, and like she was just receiving all these injured yokai and had to heal them like as her penance. It's a really
Nadia,
cool story, actually.
It's a game I think you would enjoy, honestly.
I probably would. I like
up your alley.
stuff like that.
that's going to do it
Yeah.
for Knights today, I think. I think we've covered the gamut. We had a few more. I'll just run down the list and shout them out. We did talk about whether Jedi count. I do think they kind of count, so shout outs to Bastila Shan. Apparently, a lot of Jedi, but I think Bastila is one of the characters that comes to mind the most. We did talk about Orin already, who I think is kind of a fringe case knight. We didn't talk about the actual tactics knights and the way that they use kind of weapon breaking, armor breaking, and stuff like that, but I always did kind of like that. They have those cool status effects that they put on people. We talked about Frog. We talked about Ulfar, Warhammer 40k Rogue
Space
Trader.
Marines
Space
aesthetically
Marines.
are very explicitly are knights. They're called Marines, but they're knights. They use heraldry, all that stuff. Yeah.
I love heraldry, I have to admit.
If you've got a favorite knight that we did
Yeah.
not shout out, please let us know in the comments down below on Patreon, or send us a message on the Discord. And if you want to get into the Discord, you can head over to patreon.com/blackoutpod and get in for any amount. Also, you can see the newsletter over there. I forgot to mention that at the top, but the newsletter now lives in a more cohesive and coherent place. So hopefully we should have fewer issues with people accessing the newsletter, and we are doing one newsletter now. There's no longer a 2-a-week newsletter. We wanted to experiment with the idea of doing the free newsletter that was just kind of an RPG headline roundup, but it was a lot of work for us, and it wasn't turning into a lot of people. We wanted it to be something that drew in new eyes, and we noticed that Nadia's newsletter was infinitely more popular, and also the free newsletter was not drawing in as many eyes as we wanted. So I think we're condensing and focusing on what works. So Nadia's newsletter continues to live. If you want to get that, you head to the Patreon.
Basically, if you want like that good old-fashioned bloggy writing you haven't seen since like the tens, that's kind of what I'm focusing on here. My topic this week was, where are all the RPG musicals? Because I just saw Back to the Future musical. It's pretty good. I can talk about it in the tavern, I suppose. But there's like there are examples for the Nier musical. There is an orchestra that's not quite the same idea, but it does have that storytelling. There's also the not Final Fantasy, Castlevania Symphony of the Night has a really badass show that I'm just dying to see in August.
You mean RPG musicals and not musical RPGs?
Right.
Okay. Because I was going to say, Nadia, Tokyo Mirage Sessions does exist.
Oh no! Like there's tons. Like hell,
Rhapsody.
Final Fantasy
Yeah.
Is like, oh god, Rhapsody.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you want that writing in this age of, slop, subscribe. $5. $5.
Support us in the age of slop. Yeah, that's a really good one. I thought you were going to say you had seen K-pop Demon Hunters, because that was me. I finally watched K-pop Demon Hunters, and I was like, man, we need games made about this. And then I realized that Tokyo Mirage Sessions exists, and I might see how that runs on my Switch 2 and just boot that up and be like, oh, does this run well on the Switch 2? Let's find out. So look forward to that in a future tavern. Speaking of RPG headlines, let's get into a series of random encounters. Digital Foundry says the Zelda Switch upgrades are not only excellent but essential. That's awesome.
Yeah.
We love that.
We love to hear that. I am so tempted to play Tears of the Kingdom again, but I know I'll never stop. So I'm holding off for now.
Night Rain's duo mode is coming next week, and also Night Rain is at 5 million sold, and Shadow of the Erdtree is at 10 million. We are never leaving the lands between. It will be Persona 5, as Nadia writes. I'm happy the Night Rain is finally getting duos, because I got to be honest with y'all. I was covering this on the news side, and it was, it's interesting. I'm glad they're finally doing it, because it's weird to only have 1 or 3 but not 2. But at the same time, the way people talked about it, they were like, well, solo mode is too hard, which I don't know. I think they've toned it back quite a bit from the way it was. I do think it was a little too hard. Now it's been kind of balanced. It's a little bit, it's not easy, but it is not as bad as it used to be. Let me put it that way. And they were like, and if you play trios, then you always got to have a random, and everyone said that all the time, and I was like, do y'all not have a third friend or a second friend? What's going on here?
Come on, we're talking about Gen Alpha and Gen Z here.
Is there an epidemic of people who only know one other person?
Yes, absolutely.
But Free D&D games on Steam. Dragon Shard and Forgotten Realms, Demon Stone. Be sure to check those out. Patch 7.3 is coming to Final Fantasy XIV on August 5th. It's the conclusion of Dawntrail's story and off to wherever we'll be spending our next chunk of time, most likely. Also, chat bubbles and a few other things. I think that's going to be pretty interesting to see. What are the chat bubbles, Nadia? I didn't see this part of the live letter.
As an RPer, I have wanted chat bubbles in FF14 for a long time.
Basically what they sound like. If you're RPing or something like that, it's perfect because you know how usually when you see someone screaming about something, you can just see it in the chat one day, you don't know who's talking. Now you'll see like chat bubbles, like to see who's talking directly. And if you're RPing,
that's gonna get crazy. I gotta go to the nightclubs ASAP.
Exactly. Like go to the nightclubs, go to the quicksand, have a good time.
Whoa, that's gonna get nuts.
See, it doesn't seem weird to me because I played World of Warcraft first, and they've had this from day one. So
yeah, it's funny that it hasn't been a thing since day one. But
I can't wait. That's great update. This is so cursed, so good.
Lim Solo Minsa is going to be a shit show.
Let's roll on into the tavern. Let's talk about what we've been playing lately. Nadia, I believe you and I both realized we have not talked about Donkey Kong Bananza on here, which ostensibly could be an RPG as it has skill points in it.
It has skill points in
and
it.
You get them from banana.
Banana.
It's an RPG in the sense that everything is kind of an RPG now. But yeah, I would count it. Yeah,
I would count. There's a big open world component to it.
I legitimately, not for the bit, for realistically, I would not call it an RPG. However, for the bit, I will absolutely call it an RPG.
Exactly.
It's got collectibles, it's got secrets, it's got boss fights, you know.
So Donkey Kong Bananza, I don't know how far everybody is. I'm at the part where it basically forks into two areas, and I have finished one of the areas. I've not finished the other area yet. I'm gonna be honest, okay? I'm not gonna try to break hearts here. I feel like Donkey Kong Bananza is the most I have ever felt. It is an incredible, just dopamine drip of a game. You always have something to go pick up, something to get, and you are always smashing your way there. I think it, more often than not, has moments of just sheer brilliance where I'm going like, oh, this is so incredible, this is so thoughtful, this is so much fun. I love the character design so much. I think Nintendo knocked it out of the park when it came to the world design, the character designs. I think a lot of people, I know, kind of had some issues with the first areas. The further in you get, the more wildly inventive that world gets. And I love the underground world that feels like vast biomes underneath the mantle of the earth. Like that's such a rich, interesting concept. But there are also times where I'm playing DK and I'm like, okay, this is dragging on a little bit. You know, I guess, you know, this is kind of wearing on me. I'm kind of doing a lot of the same things over and over and over again, just with a little bit of variation. I don't think the combat's always fantastic. There are a lot of times where I feel the combat feels a little bit clunky because you're just kind of punching things, and that's really your only interaction, compared to something like Mario Odyssey, where it felt like you had a lot more tools to do combat or even solve what combat is. But DK doesn't always have those tools. DK just kind of has punch and throw, and they do some interesting things with that. I like when I realized that you could catch things that enemies threw at you to throw them back. That was a really fun little moment of just realization. But I keep going back and forth between smash things, hell yeah, and I'm really only smashing things. Also,
you're not
hell
using
yeah, but
you're not using like animal powers and stuff.
Because I only just got my first animal power, the ostrich, but even within that, it adds new movement tech, but it didn't add anything that changed the verbiage I had outside of it. You know what I'm saying? Like it had.
You will. I mean, I think later on, especially once you unlock all of them and you unlock the skill trees for all of them,
Yeah.
Okay.
that's like your cappy. And like especially when you get to areas much later on, I would say you're actually probably less than halfway through the
Interesting.
game.
Okay.
Yeah, especially when you get to areas where it's like, oh, I have to switch
Banana.
between forms to do this course. That's when it starts to get really
Okay.
interesting and where you have more verbs to work with. Yeah.
I'm also seeing in the comments Radical Defect is
Yeah.
saying my spoiler free opinion of DK Bonanza is pre sub level 800, 7 out of 10 tends to drag everything from 800 till the end of the credits, 777 out of 10 Goaty. And I've seen other people say that apparently DK really gets going in the back half of the game, and so maybe that's kind of where I'm at. Is I'm still a little. This is the most RPG thing. It's like, oh, you're early on. Just give him more time.
Yeah, it does. It has a nice difficulty curve, and I do think the early worlds, the early levels, are definitely geared more towards you can hand this to your 7-year-old cousin and they wouldn't get too frustrated at it.
That's
but there
true.
is stuff. I'm in the post game now, and I would say similar to Odyssey's post game, it gets kind of ridiculous. Like there's some ridiculous optional challenge stuff you can do.
How have you been feeling about it in general, Len? So you've beaten the game, you're playing post game. Like, what are kind of your thoughts on it?
I really like it. I think this might be Nintendo's best first party 3D platformer.
Wow.
I think I like it more than Odyssey, honestly. I think part of it is that they've separated bananas and fossils a little bit better. Where like I feel like one of my biggest issues with Odyssey was just everything's a moon, so moons don't even feel special anymore. And I think just creating more of a bifurcation between the big collectibles and the small collectibles was nice, I thought. But I love the destructible stuff. I love that there's like a built-in frustration valve where it's like, okay, I've spent too long on this puzzle. I'm just gonna tear this whole room apart.
Yeah,
you know,
that's my style.
You can't always do that, especially later on. There's some places where like, no, okay, you actually do have to solve the puzzle. But yeah, I've really liked it. The music is fantastic.
Oh, music's great.
I love the level designs, especially some of the later level designs. And there's some surprises I don't think you'll see coming toward the back half.
I'm working very hard to avoid spoilers.
Yeah, I know I was joking on Twitter about Donkey Kong spoilers. This game does have spoilers. You should try to avoid one specific spoiler at least. Yeah,
I've been largely off social media lately just because I don't find it good for my mental health. And
excellent idea.
Yeah.
The more it started with Twitter becoming just an absolute pit.
I should say Blue Sky, not Twitter. I call it Twitter now because it's Twitter.
Yeah. But even Blue Sky. Blue Sky I've been taking like more of a step back from, and I found like the more I kind of detach from that and just focus on talking with people, it's been better for my health. Yeah.
I've been reducing my time as well. Although I did take time to say that whoever posted that YouTube spoiler thumbnail, I hope it said 50 baboons point their assholes at you all at once and fart.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I have found myself being more specific with what I watch on YouTube, or if I have to look something up, I might even like incognito window, even if it's like, I know the incognito window. What are you looking up, Eric? Like it's like sometimes I will do that so it doesn't affect my algorithm. So if I'm looking for like a specific clip from a game or something, like I'm trying to remember how a section in Nier Automata went for Norm DFM or something like that, I will incognito so it doesn't make my YouTube feed just full of Nier Automata or Nier stuff, because I am always surprised by how sensitive the algorithm is in that way. And so I have avoided like looking up anything about Donkey Kong Bananza, because I know the second I do, I'm going to get slammed in the face with spoiler stuff, because I was surprised by how fast like games like Final Fantasy 16 and stuff like that had their spoilers just out and about. We talked about Baldur's Gate 3 earlier. There are really big twists, like massive story changing twists that happen in the back half of Baldur's Gate 3 that people are surprisingly chill about just saying out loud and putting out into the ether.
Yep.
So yeah, no, I try to be very, very intentional about the YouTube videos I watch, which means I just get a lot of Northern Lion and like music videos and stuff like that.
Those are all right.
Yeah, those are fine. The bald man will guide me out of the algorithm darkness. Nadia, you've been enjoying Bonanza too, though?
Yes, absolutely. I've been the thing with Bonanza that a lot of people maybe aren't realizing just yet is that it has a really good loop where that you can smash the hell out of everything and you will find treasure chests. And if you just don't know what to do, those treasure chests will guide you to find something. And there's a good chance that, like, even if you're looking for a fossil, a weak ass fossil, you will find a banana. And unlike Mario Odyssey, yes, I feel like the bananas are more of a reward because even though skill tree, some people say, the skill tree is frivolous. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but I think I like having something to work towards, especially in terms of, okay, well, if you want to level up your punching meter, like your digging meter, as it is, that takes some bananas. So it's good to look around for them. You can even reset your skills if you want, but I haven't really done that. I am, think, sub-level 900. And yeah, it's just a charming ass game. Like, I just found a level where it is like you have these bonus levels that give you 3 bananas if you finish them all, and usually there's some kind of hidden element to them, and it's really clever. But I found one that was basically a recreation of Donkey Kong Country's minecart, and they had the remix of. I don't know if David Wise is credited in this game. I really hope he is because a lot of his music is used to great effect here. So yeah, it's just a pleasure of a game to play. It's a game that's just fun to exist in because something bothers you, you don't like that thing, you can smash it. I'm at the point in my life where I'm looking at like there's a school across the way from me that I can see from my balcony. I'm like that straight undamaged wall offends me. Someone should do something about that undamaged wall. Like I've just had that itch in my head now.
Nadia's gonna go bonanza on the school.
School's canceled. What happened? Some freak show punched the wall. We don't understand what happened. They killed themselves. There's blood everywhere.
These kids are like learning math, and then all of a sudden, like Boulder comes flying through Bonanza, and then like ba da 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 ba da 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 ba da ba da ba da ba, just running through there, smacking walls down and stuff.
Yeah,
points for every kid you hit.
No, I do.
What
love
is this, a Waymo?
The real,
allegedly,
like the real, because I was a fan of the Rare games. Even DK64, as controversial as its legacy is,
I had it, but I didn't finish it.
Yeah, well, so I love sort of the slow onset realization that, like, because there was all that rumors that there was drama between Rare and Nintendo of Japan and stuff, but like this game was made by people who really do love the old Rare Donkey Kong games.
Absolutely.
And that becomes more apparent, I think, the more you play it.
I think it's
because DK Country 2 is still one of my favorite platformers of all time.
It's interesting for me because I have always loved Donkey Kong as a character. Whenever I would play Mario Kart or Mario Party, Donkey Kong was one of my standard go-tos until they finally started putting Monty Mole into Mario Kart and Mario Party. Finally, I love Monty Mole. He's like one of the best Mario characters. He's just a little guy and he pats his tummy and he's the best. I love him. But DK was kind of always one of my fallbacks. I also love playing as him in Smash. But every time I played an actual Donkey Kong game, nothing. It just did very little for me. And that goes for DK64. That goes for Donkey Kong Country and Tropical Freeze. Like, for some reason, this character in his natural environment never clicked for me. It was always in the abstraction that I really liked Donkey Kong. And so finally, I do feel like the one thing this game has achieved is it's a Donkey Kong game where I love Donkey Kong, the character in it. I think he's such a good character design. I think the things they have done with his expressiveness and his reactions and just everything about him as a character is so good. He's like a mixture of an absolute himbo, but then also Totoro from My Neighbor Totoro.
Yeah,
like he's kind of got that energy to him too, and which is helped by Pauline always being around and all that. But they captured a really good vision of Donkey Kong and then also made Donkey Kong Like I know I was complaining earlier about like, oh, it can get kind of tedious, but the first time I just started digging around a map and was hitting my sonar clap to find bananas and tunneling to them, and it was really funny to tunnel into a room and get a banana and then look over and be like, oh, there was like a very signposted way to enter this
Yeah.
room, but I just tunneled to it like Bugs Bunny. And
Yeah, it's like I'll find a banana that's called like swinging across the frosty pit, and I'm like, well, I just punched through the wall, but I'm sure that would have been fun too.
yeah. I punched through the crustaceous layer. Yeah. Yeah, I think that has been the real revelation for me is like, cool, a Donkey Kong game that I personally really enjoy playing and I am having a good time with. And also, this is the game I think the Switch 2 needed in a lot of ways. It's not just, I think, the best showcase for the Switch 2 so far. It's not just the game that I feel is that single player game that you can chew on, but it kind of is that, where you need something that, because Mario Kart was great, but I was never sitting down and playing Mario Kart when I wasn't playing with friends. You know, maybe I boot up the open world and do some open world stuff, but I felt like you need a Breath of the Wild. You need something like that that's going to give you this thing to kind of keep going back to, but also something that feels a little bit. Nintendo's gotten really good at like bite-sized design. The shrine ethos of here's just gameplay in like a little pod, and you're always going to have little goals that you can go after, but then also you can just boop, like put the system to sleep, put it away, come back, and then pick it up, and you know exactly what you're doing. There's always kind of little goalposts, so you're not getting lost between the big goalposts. And Nintendo's so freaking good at that, and also it fits the Switch so well. It fits the environment of the Switch so well. You can have a long session with DK Bananza where you're just progressing through a whole layer and doing the whole storyline and advancing to the next one. Or I was at the passport office getting my passport recently, and I was just sitting waiting in line for my number to be called, and I was just playing some DK and was just getting some fossils and some banana gems, and there were multiple kids there who were looking at me and they were like, oh man, he has a Switch too. I was like, yeah, I got a Switch too, man.
This is what's good about being an adult.
Be jealous.
I get that too.
I can spend my money on whatever I want. Yeah.
You get to flaunt this when you're older. You have to pay the price of aging, but you get this.
Well, and people were like, they were disappointed that the Switch 2 Direct was like, okay, there's no there's no mainline Mario game, there's no mainline Zelda game. I think this is going to be, if you're waiting for that, you don't really need to wait. Like this is a Mario Odyssey tier game. Like
exactly, that's a good way to put it. Yeah.
You may now safely buy the Switch 2 if that's what you were waiting for.
It's been interesting. I think there's a lot of reasons to get a Switch 2 at this point, but I think DK Bananza is the big one, to the point where I wish this was. I get why Mario Kart is the bundled one, because why are you going to own a Switch and not own Mario Kart, right? That's the game that should just be pre-installed on all Switches going forward. Again, we talked about this before, but more people probably have played a Mario Kart now than have played a Mario. That's the level of saturation that Mario Kart specifically is at. But DK getting this shine, getting this love, and I think reminding everyone that like DK is a character that, you know, Mario is kind of your household name, kind of like your Sonics or your Pikachus. I love the idea that DK can be that. My parents, so I took my Switch 2 over to my parents' place and was showing them this game because, you know, they always kind of like to see, you know, what I do for a living, but also, you know, where this stuff is at. So I was like, I'll bring my Switch 2 over. I'll show you all DK Bananza. And it was really funny to just, like, to them, Donkey Kong is the gorilla that tosses the barrels down on the arcade game, like a burn, and all that kind of stuff. And you know, but they were really enjoying it even from that, because DK is such a good character of just, here's this gorilla that does chaos, but then immediately like the vibe of his character, that Totoro element comes across, and they're like, oh, DK is so cool. I do also have to shout out the the memes about Pauline just singing randomly. People were posting that clip of the actress from Wicked on late night doing her like vocal riff just out of nowhere, and it was like Pauline when she sees some purple tape. It's like,
yeah. I think of Jenna from 30 Rock, where
yes,
like she'll just burst out singing it like the random moments.
Yeah. And she's like, no, I'm too shy. Oh, never mind. Give me the mic. Yeah. They just did a really great job. I think the character designs. I also had a moment, and this is rare that this happens for me, but so we were just kind of hanging out again. I was at my parents' place, and we were kind of starting to talk and eat dinner and stuff like that. So I kind of let the game sit, and you'd be surprised. The music in this game is just kind of good background conversational music. It was a good vibe, like. But then I was like, oh, I'll walk DK over and like put him on top of a chair that's next to this table where the teacup is. So it's like, oh, it's like, haha, he's sitting there. And then after he idled in that spot for a bit, he flipped down and started sitting and just kind of hanging out. And I was like, they thought of that. They have something built in for if you idle on top of a chair or something, DK actually sits on it. That's so good, man. That's so clever.
The game is just full of stuff like that. The thing that shocked me is if you take dirt and throw it at one of the crystal guys, it becomes crystal because they're seed crystals. Mm-hmm. So I've been giving these guys like terrible tumors and then punching them. And that's what I like about this game is that you can punch the NPCs. They don't give a shit. They're like, that's our DK. Yeah. He just fucks things up.
My sister was shocked when I got a tip from one of them, and I just like put a hole through him. And she was like, "Oh my god!" I was like, "He grows back. It's okay."
They like it. Will be like, "Haha, whoops!" Like, it's not a big deal. Like, yeah.
I only got that for the first time today, where I just destroyed someone by accident. Pauline just like, whoops, or she laughed. She just plain up laughed.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, such a good game. I don't know if there's any other tavern stuff we should talk about. I should mention, so I said Final Fantasy IX. I have been playing it. I think what I'm going to do now is I've been playing it on my Switch 2, and the version of Final Fantasy IX on the Switch 2 runs bad. I'm sorry. It's amazing, like how just it feels like it's chugging. And it's slow, and I know FF9 itself had performance issues way back when it was really pushing the limits of its hardware at the time. But I'm surprised that even the Switch 2 version just has odd frame rates and weirdly long load times, and just doesn't move in the way that you would expect an old game running on modern hardware to do. So I think my answer is there's the PC mod, the Memoria mod or something like that. I think that's my answer. I think I will eventually revisit FF9. I do genuinely want to get back to FF9 at some point, but I think I'm going to have to do it through some sort of, community made assisted like upgrade. I didn't want to do that because as folks who have watched my streams before know, with Chrono Trigger, with FF6, I want to play the game as it originally was to experience what that was like. But the thing with like Chrono Trigger and FF6 is those games just look old, but they run fine. They run absolutely well, especially if you're putting it on hardware that can more than handle it. For some reason, FF9, I didn't have an issue with the way it looked. It was an issue with the way it ran, where I was just like, this game feels like it's struggling, and in ways that are not conducive to play. Even within ATB battles and stuff, I was like, it feels kind of like it's herking forward. And so I think I am going to get back to it, but on a better version of it. And now I have joined the chorus of people that are like, yeah, FF9 could probably use like, not a remake, but a remaster. Just tune up a version of that game to make it not run terribly. I'm on record saying that we do too many remasters and stuff like that, but no, we found the one that could use it. We found the one that could really use it. That would be beneficial to it. So yeah, I think I do want to get back to that. I find that game really interesting, but I think this is what kicks me on to eventually now going back to the early Final Fantasies and going that route instead. So my own personal Sakaguchi quest will start. I've never played FF1. Should do that. It's probably
Absolutely
doesn't take
should.
long to play, right? It's probably a pretty short game by modern standards. So
I remember I played it for like an hour and I couldn't figure out what I was supposed to do, and then
Oh,
I got in my
never went back to
childhood.
it.
I will use a
Yeah.
guide. I have no scruples about that.
Yeah, you probably should.
Yeah. I had a few moments where I was like, "Oh, should I try to play this as intended?" Nah, I'm gonna use a guide. Only when I need
Yeah.
it. Only when I feel myself being like, I don't know what I'm doing right now. But
Only when you're trapped in the hallway of Hill Gygases. You'll see.
the hallway of Hill Gygases.
Yeah.
That's my Final Fantasy booster packs. If you all know the Magic the Gathering, I've cracked so many Hill Gygases. I don't
Yeah,
need to
they're
cycle
around.
any more mountains. I'm good. I will be using the Pixel Remaster. They were on sale recently, and I just got all of them. That was my thing, is all of the Final Fantasies were on sale in the Switch eShop, so I was like, cool, there's no reason why I shouldn't have every Final Fantasy like 1 through 12 except 11. Haha, Victor, there's your joke.
Mhm.
All of them on my Switch, because that just makes sense, right? If you can have all of them, have all of them. But so I got the Pixel remasters, so I will be playing through those versions of that, because I've heard 2 gets weird. 2 has a lot of opinions
yeah.
around which version you should play. So I'll go with the Pixel remaster. Nadia, why don't you take us home?
Okay, but first you have to read what I wrote in the notes.
Okay. My pit. I thought Donkey Kong wanted to kill me. Okay, elaborate.
Yes. So you were talking about how your parents were like into Donkey Kong because to them Donkey Kong was the guy from the arcade game. You know, he threw barrels and stuff like that. Da 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 da. So my first game of my life actually was Donkey Kong for the ColecoVision. So I was thinking about how, oh wow, it's really cool how things have come around like full circle. Here I am really enjoying Donkey Kong Bonanza, and as a kid I played Donkey Kong on the ColecoVision. Now, I was like 4 when I first played my game. I first played my first game, 3 or 4, and the ColecoVision version of Donkey Kong is actually quite a good adaptation of the arcade game. Like it has a lot of the features that everyone was doing Donkey Kong back then, and obviously they were like weaker systems in arcade. They had to make compromises. So the ColecoVision of Donkey Kong, its compromises were like, okay, the gameplay was more or less intact, but they made Donkey Kong look like a serial killer. Like for years I had no idea that Donkey Kong, if you see him in the arcade, he's goofy, he's funny, he smiles, he grimaces, he climbs, he's bum, whatever. It's very much the same energy you get with Donkey Kong Bonanza, which is silly, fun, goofy. Donkey Kong can smash your brain into like a smoothie, but it doesn't matter because he won't do that. He's cool. The Donkey Kong in the ColecoVision, like, he barely moves. He has like the animation for throwing the barrels, but otherwise he just stands and stares at you, and he has this really pale white face and these mean little eyes that glare and this big frown, and it just looks like a mom who knows that you pooped your pants and hid it somewhere. It just like has that look on his face. Eric leaning forward.
That wasn't the direct. I thought you were going for like, oh, this is a scary, intimidating monster which might appear in your nightmares, and you're like, oh, it's a mom that knows that you pooped your pants. And I'm like, that took a pivot.
Well, in either case, Donkey Kong just looks so angry at you.
I am looking up ColecoVision Donkey Kong.
Oh, please do.
Yeah,
please
I'm looking
do.
at it too. Yeah.
So just let me know if it was just like childhood psychosis.
He does look unsettling, I will
Yeah.
say.
It does, right?
Yeah, I will say the color palette of this version is strange in a lot of ways, actually.
But he has
What
those
was
like
happening
tiny
on the
eyes.
ColecoVision?
Yeah, the little beady eyes is what
The little
gets me.
beady eyes, yeah.
Yeah.
And in also that kind of makes it worse is that in
Oh
the
God.
ColecoVision.
Okay, shit. Yeah.
Oh,
I hate that.
now you see him.
That's terrible.
Yeah, as Lancehart says, he's mean mugging you, and if you touch him, like so in the ColecoVision version of Donkey Kong, Mario doesn't have a death animation. You just hear that really kind of loud death sound, da 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 da. You know the one.
Oh.
So
Okay.
you can go up to Donkey Kong on like the girders level and touch him, and that will kill you. But nothing happens. You know what I mean? You just touch him and you hear the death sound. It's not like he like some kid in my class, of course, was like, "Oh, like if you touch Donkey Kong, he'll pick you up and throw you." And yeah, sure you will. But it's just an unsettling gorilla. I was scared of Donkey Kong for quite a while when I was a child. Now you know why.
I think that's valid. We all get scared by something when we're so when my dad used to play Super Mario 64 on the N64, and there was a noise that it made if you jumped into a painting that you weren't supposed to go into yet or whatever. That was Bowser laughing at you, I think. And it was like
yeah.
Hur, 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 hur. That scared the crap out of me as a kid. That was like the scariest noise I'd ever heard in my life. That was like the guttural laughing of my nightmare monsters brought to life. I hated it. Like it literally. I did not play Super Mario 64 for the longest time because of that noise.
I have to admit, Mario 64 has some really unsettling things in it, like the piano that with the teeth that will suddenly jump out at you. That's a bit of a jump scare. But the thing that gets me about Mario 64 is that its drowning animation is so realistic that it scares the shit out of me to this day. And also the same thing if you choke on poison gas. Mario just like struggles to breathe and falls over. But he falls over with his head with his like legs in the air, so it's kind of funny, but also he died choking on gas.
If you think about Mario 64, it's kind of a horror game because you get a letter, you go to a castle where Princess Peach has disappeared. It's a very unassuming castle, but then you start jumping into levels that take you to places that have spikes, that have monsters, that have evil everywhere. The plot to Mario 64 is the same as the plot to Silent Hill. I don't know that I ever previously made this connection.
In my rest of
and
the
it's
streams.
fucking
all
with me a
about
little
Mario's
bit.
regrets. Yeah.
I'm gonna post the.
That's a good creepypasta, Eric, because you're not totally far off mark there.
Man, I hadn't thought of this before. This is a new frontier. Damn. This was a pit. Good job, Nadia.
Anytime.
Before we bounce, Len, for the folks at home, where can they find you and all the wonderful things you do on the internet?
Yeah, I mean, the one-stop shop at this point is len.bsky.social. I got in early enough that I just have a 3-letter username on there, which is one of my main claims to fame. But I also do a podcast called 3 Moves Ahead, which you can find at 3ma.bsky.social, where we talk about strategy, tactics, and management games, mostly. And, might have Eric on there at some point in the near future when the schedules line up. Yeah, at some point. Yeah.
There's been an episode we've been talking about wanting to do for a while that is about Warcraft 3 custom games specifically.
Oh, that sounds neat.
A deep rabbit hole.
Undergoing a renaissance right now. Like it's kind of strange, but yeah.
I mean, you can go back through history and there's genres that spawned out of Warcraft 3 custom games and StarCraft custom games, and I'm sure there's been many people who have talked about the history and the legacy of that stuff, though not enough, in my experience. Not enough people realize it. But I grew up on that. I got the war chests, the battle chests, all that, and I would play custom games for hours and hours and hours, whether it was honestly not as much Dota as you would think, but a lot of tower defense, a lot of Winter Mall Wars, a lot of Life of a Peasant, a lot of... Evolves, and StarCraft had the modes that you would have an auto spawner, and it would just be you would mash your auto spawning units into other people's auto spawning units, and it was a game that was kind of about managing how many units you had, and you had to get a certain number of kills to evolve to the next. So Evolves was kind of like the core founder of this, but Nadia, you will enjoy this. It eventually turned into a thing because you'd be in this arena that was kind of like circular in the middle, and then everybody had their own little alcove, and that's where their auto spawner units were popping up. So you get a little Zergling and it'd pop out, and you'd run all your Zerglings in, and somebody else would run in, and they'd have all Zealots, and you'd be smashing them into each other. And once you killed enough units, you'd go up to the next level. So maybe now you're spawning Hydralisks or whatever, right? Someone decided this needs to be pop culture. So you would have Simpsons Wars or Family Guy Wars, where your units were all based they were still units that were StarCraft units, but they were based on actual characters from pop culture. So Family Guy Wars, you'd be like, oh, I'm spawning Stewies and they're science vessels, and now I'm spawning Bryans and they're like Ultralisks and stuff like that. Or like Peter
Fortnite before Fortnite.
Yeah, and it was kind of weird and novel, and obviously like Peter Griffin as a tank, it would be like Peter Griffin parentheses tank. It was like, it didn't make any sense, but it was kind of funny. It was kind of interesting.
Remember the time I was a tank in StarCraft?
Yeah. But you'd have Simpsons ones where you'd have Bart and Marge and Apu and stuff like that. You have them spawning in as characters that like kind of loosely maybe resembled some aspect of them as a character, but usually it was a stretch at most.
There was a Dragon Ball Z one that went through like every arc of Dragon Ball Z.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Helm's Deep was really popular.
Helm's Deep
there was
great.
Yeah.
There's
really
Angel Arena, which I spent a lot of time playing, where you had an individual character that you would level up and then kind of like duel with other people with. Oh god, I loved Angel Arena. And then we were probably going to talk about was it Direct Strike and the renaissance that has had, and
I'm so addicted to Direct Strike. Yeah,
it's fascinating to watch that stuff evolve. So at some point, look forward to that. 3 moves ahead. But yeah, for us, Axe of the Blood God, patreon.com/bloodgodpod. We're heading now to the post show with our Stars of Destiny, where we'll be hanging out and chatting about whatever. Who knows where this will take us? It always goes crazy. But for Len, for Nadia, for myself, thank you so much for tuning in this week, and we'll see you next time on Axe of the Blood God.